Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to another edition of Movie Goodness here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and we are still celebrating Black History Month here on the KB Radio Network, and we find ourselves on the eve of the Super Bowl. At least at the time of this recording, this weekend we have the Super Bowl that will take place in Los Angeles between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. And it is geared up to be a good one. But this isn't the sports show. This isn't deep dive into who I think should win, who I think will win, who will be the MVP. I could care less. We're going to discuss something that's associated with Black history. Not really the Super Bowl, but I figured, hey, since the Super Bowl is this weekend, let's talk a little football. Let's go in depth into a current issue that is plaguing this nation, not just the NFL, but something that has come up over the last couple of weeks that is deeply troubling. And I wanted to really dive into it earlier, like when it first broke, but it's something I just wanted to take my time and really explain my true feelings on it. And as always, these are just my feelings. This is just my views. You may feel differently about it, which is fine. I understand. But for me personally, I have a different view. As we all know, well, I'm going to say all of us, but if you follow football, and last couple of weeks, we had an issue where one of the coaches in the NFL, the former coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, he was fired. Now, that's nothing new. Coaches get fired every year. Actually, he wasn't even the only one this season. I think they had 8 coaches that fired. Well, 7. 7 coaches that got fired. 1 retired. And so it was 8 job openings as far as head coaches in the NFL. So this isn't a rare occurrence that a NFL coach getting fired. Happens all the time. The problem was Brian Flores, who is black. Well, actually, he's Honduran, but he considers himself black. I don't understand how this man got fired after having back-to-back winning seasons. He has a winning record with the Miami Dolphins. He is a very highly, should I say, respected coach in the league. And he got let go from his job. Now, once again, not uncommon. This happens a lot in the league. But the uncommon part is when the other job openings, the other 7, he was basically brought in just to check a box. And that's part of the problem that we're having in the NFL. And this goes deeper than the NFL. And I don't think a lot of people really look at it that way. But this is a serious issue in society as a whole. Black people are not afforded a fair opportunity. And this was something that was brought to light when Brian Flores decided to sue the NFL and 3 other teams. And we're going to dive more into it. But the reason he was brought in on these interviews, once again, for those of you who are not into football and don't know the ins and outs of it, the NFL implemented a rule that is applied to all 32 teams in the league. This rule states that if you have an opening at head coach, you are required, it is mandated, that you must interview at least 2 minority candidates. Minority being, of course, whether they're black, Latino, female, anything, anything other than white. That's minority. And that may sound kind of ridiculous, but that's what a minority is. If you want to strip away the bones, that's the definition. Anything other than white. So they had to or white male. So it is required to interview at least 2 candidates before you hire your head coach. Now, that means if a team has decided straight off the bat that we're going to hire Joe Blow, who is a white man, who has no coaching experience, but that's the guy that you want for the job. There's nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. But the NFL requires you to interview at least 2 minority candidates. So you have to go through this whole process of bringing in Kevin Reed or Kevin Reed Jr., who doesn't exist, and interview them for the job just to check a box, just so you won't be fined or stripped of any draft picks in the future, because that's the stipulation. That is humiliating for somebody of color, a minority. That is a joke. That's a joke. So you're not giving me a fair opportunity. I could actually do the job, but you don't want me, which is cool, but just don't bring me in. Don't patronize me. And that's all this rule is. I've said it over on my sports show, the Dome Patrol podcast. I've said it a few times. I hate the Rooney Rule, and I don't hate a lot of things, but the Rooney Rule is on that short list. I hate the Rooney Rule because I think it's a joke. It is a joke, man. It's playing with people's emotions. It's playing with people's manhood. It's playing with people's time. It's playing with people's money. All that. Because going in, you're not going to get that job. But you are going in just so this organization or this team won't get fined, won't be subjected to losing draft picks. It's just to help them out so they can be above board. Here's my feelings on this, and this is why it's troubling to me. The NFL put this rule in place, and I understand why. Because before this, black coaches weren't getting any interviews, let alone just brought in for smoke and mirrors. They weren't getting any interviews before this rule was put in place. So I understand that aspect of it, but it's just there for show. And I think in many ways, depending on how you look at it, that's worse. Being played around, being toyed with an opportunity is probably in some instances worse than not having an opportunity at all. I mean, depending on where you stand on it. Me personally, I think that is just worse. I'd rather you just don't talk to me. Just don't play with my emotions. Don't get my hopes up. You know what I'm saying? And then just put it in a bag, throw it on the floor, and stomp on them as I'm walking into the door. And that's how it feels with this Rooney Rule. But let's go over the Rooney Rule. Let me break down the Rooney Rule so you can understand, for those of you who don't know, what exactly it is, how it came to be, and why it's a mess. The Rooney Rule is the NFL's, or the National Football League's, policy that requires teams to interview ethnic minority candidates for head coaching and senior football operation jobs. meaning like a general manager or something of that nature, because weren't getting those opportunities either. It was just till recently that we really start seeing. I think right now, I should have looked this up. I think if I'm off the top of my head, I think there are 4 GMs or senior football operation personnels in the NFL, which is still dangerously low, but is more than actual head coaches, if you can believe that. But it is an example of affirmative action. I'm pretty sure we all know what affirmative action is. Even though there are no hiring quotas, so you're not required to actually hire nobody, or hiring preferences given to minorities, only an interview quota, which I said before, you just have to interview 2. It was established in 2003, and variations of the rule is now in place in other industries. The rule is named after Dan Rooney, the former owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers and former chairman of the league's diversity committee. It was created as a reaction to the 2002 firing of head coaches Tony Dungy of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Dennis Green of the Minnesota Vikings. At the time when Dungy had a winning record, if I'm not mistaken, he had went to the playoffs. He actually brought that team to the playoffs and got fired. Dennis Green had just had his first losing season. Now, granted, he had a losing season, so you could say, well, Kevin, that's a bad example because he had a losing season. That's why he got fired. His first one in 10 years. He only had one losing season, and he got fired. Shortly afterwards, United States civil rights attorneys Cyrus Manry and Johnny Cochran released a study showing that black head coaches, despite winning a higher percentage of games, were less likely to be hired and more likely to be fired than their white counterparts. Former NFL players Kellen Winslow and John Wooden then put together a group of minority scouts, coaches, and front office personnel to advise for the rules creation. Advocate for the rules creation. Its purpose was to ensure that minority coaches, especially African Americans, would be considered for high-level coaching positions. Fritz Pollard was the first minority coach in NFL history, which was during the league's early years in the 1920s, believe it or not. But by the time the rule was implemented, only Tom Flores, Art Shell, Dennis Green, Ray Rhodes, Tony Dungy, and Herm Edwards had ever held coaching jobs. Only Edwards and Tony Dungy were actively coaching at the time of the rules implementation. Although Shell and Dennis Green would later return to coaching. That's 6. If you weren't counting, I counted for you. 6 in the 100 years since that. Well, at that time, 80. In 80 years, there were only 6 minority head coaches. You tell me if that's not a problem. Tony Dungy in particular had struggled for years before getting a head coaching job. He was often promoted as a head coaching candidate by Chuck Noll, legendary Chuck Noll. He was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who not only Tony Dungy played under, but he was on his coaching staff when Tony Dungy stopped playing. He was an assistant under Chuck Noll, to be exact. But He would not become a head coach till 1996 when he took over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another former Steeler assistant, Marvin Lewis, also struggled to find a head coaching position despite success as the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, and would not find a coaching position until being hired by the Cincinnati Bengals in 2003, the year the Rooney Rule went into effect. The impact of this rule. When the Rooney Rule was established, several NFL franchises have hired African American coaches, including the Pittsburgh Steelers themselves, who hired Mike Tomlin in 2007. The Steelers, however, have already interviewed Ron Rivera, who is of Hispanic descent, to fulfill the requirement before interviewing Tomlin, and Rooney himself contends that Tomlin's hiring did not result from the rule. He was just the best man for the job. At the start of the 2006 season, the overall percentage of African American coaches had jumped to 22%, up from 6% prior to the Rooney Rule. Now, when I read those numbers, you'll say, hey, the rule works. Why do you hate it so much? Well, I'll fast forward to this year. At the end of this football season, at the end of the 2021 football season, the NFL only had one black head coach. One. And that, you want to know who that one is? I just read his name, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is still the coach. He's been the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 16 years. And he's never had a losing season. Never in his entire reign as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even won a Super Bowl. So that's that's one man whose resume you could put up against anybody, even the great Bill Belichick. Who's been to what, 10 or not? No, he been to 9 Super Bowls, but he doesn't have a resume like that. Never having a losing season. Mike Tomlin did it. But when Mike Tomlin was hired in 2007, in the next 12 seasons under the rule, the NFL did add 14 non-white head coaches, although many lost their jobs after just a few seasons. For the 2019 season, 8 NFL teams had head coaching vacancies to fill. However, only one, the Miami Dolphins, hired a non-white coach. That coach being Brian Flores, who was then fired after 3 seasons, the final 2 in which he had winning seasons. As of 2020, the NFL has 3 African American head coaches, the same number as it was in 2003 when the Rooney Rule was first adopted. And therein lies the problem. You took a giant leap at one point, but gradually, as you can see, it just reverted back to what it was before. Now, that leads me into another discussion about this rule. Now, we discussed Brian Flores, which is the reason why we're discussing this topic today. And not only that, it is the Super Bowl weekend. And whether you love football or don't watch it, hate it, can't stand it, whatever the case may be, it's hard to ignore It's hard to avoid the fact that the Super Bowl is here. It is the biggest television event of whatever year, every year that it comes on. Football is the most watched sport in this country. And it's top 5 around the world. I mean, probably top 3 around the world, depending on what part of the world you're at. But this is one of the reasons the lawsuit filed by Brian Flores, the former coach of the Miami Dolphins, is sending shockwaves through the NFL. Flores, who is black, is suing the NFL and 3 of his teams, alleging racial discrimination. His complaint states that the NFL is managed much like a plantation, noting the staggering imbalance between the racial makeup of the NFL players, nearly 60% of whom are black, and the racial makeup of the team owners, management, and coaching ranks. As of now, only one head coach is among the 32 teams. Well, one head coach is black amongst the 32 teams, and no owners are. No owners are black. Now, you do have one minority owner now for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Khan, I can't think of his first name, but he owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he is a minority. But that's it. Everybody else is Caucasian. Now, this has come up before, as I stated before, about it seems like history repeated itself. 2022 and 2003 are we're pretty much in similar situations. It's the exact same setup. As I said before, the idea was that for those in a position to hire and promote were exposed to top diverse talent. The Rooney Rule wasn't set to force you to hire black coaches. That wasn't the idea. It's just to get a seat at the table. It's just so you can hear these coaches in this interview discuss their plan to better this team, why they're better suited to lead this team to success, just to get the opportunity. And that's the whole point. It's never for a handout. And that's when it gets mixed up at. I think a lot of people feel that affirmative action or the Rooney Rule is just black folks looking for a handout. That's not the case, even though in some cases we deserve a handout. But that's not what we are asking for. We're just asking for an opportunity. Because if you go over these guys' resume, obviously they're suited for the jobs. Dennis Green took a team to a Super Bowl. Took them to a national champion, but an NFC championship. God rest his soul, he passed away a couple of years ago. But after that, he didn't get a job for years. Tony Dungy led a team to the playoffs and got fired, only for them to hire a white man to take his job, and brought that same exact team that Tony Dungy built, brought them to the Super Bowl and won it, and gave the white man all the credit. Now, once that team split up and went apart, that same white man, who is John Gruden, couldn't put a team together, never sniffed playoffs or a Super Bowl after that. So, all these black head coaches have success. Lovie Smith in I think it was 2006 brought a team to the Super Bowl, the Chicago Bears, with no quarterback. He had no quarterback, and he brought a team to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he went up against one of the best quarterbacks in the Super Bowl and lost. But not too long after that, he got fired. He goes to Tampa Bay, builds a team, gets fired. At the time of this recording, he's a finalist for a job in Houston. I think he's going to get that job as the head coach of the Houston Texans. But look how long that took. That took about 10 years before he got another opportunity to be the head coach. The point I'm trying to make here is the fact that when this happens to the white counterparts in coaching, they immediately find other jobs. Whether they're successful or not, they find other jobs easily. And the question is why? Or how? How is this possible? Now, as I stated at the top of the show, at least I think I did. If I didn't, here it is. I'm all for, and I'm a big component of, the best man for the job. The best man for the job may be white. The best man for the job may be Asian. The best man for the job may be Latino. It's a possibility, man. I'm not just saying just because he's black, he deserves the job. It's not the case. It's the best person for the job. And in a lot of cases, you can see examples where these guys that they are actually hiring aren't the best person for their job, you know, but yet and still you bring in these black coaching candidates just to check a box. And that's what Brian Flores is angered about. And quite frankly, every African American as well. I mean, that should anger you. You ever worked somewhere where you knew you was the best man for the job or the best woman for the job, and they decided to go a different direction with somebody you knew you knew more than, that you was better at your job than, but they gave that job to that other individual? And you sat there and scratched your head why, or got mad enough and quit, or was frustrated, stressed out, or they even told you to train that person, train the person they felt was better than you at that job. If you've never experienced that, I have. I've been on jobs like that. And my attitude was, you got to be kidding me. There's no way that's it. I'm not training nobody to do a job that you felt I couldn't do. You said I wasn't good enough for the job. So why you want me to train them to be just as bad as you feel I was to get that position? But that's basically what's happening in the NFL. And that's what Brian Flores is trying to bring to the forefront. It wasn't so much sour grapes, or, you know, he gonna stick it to them because he got fired and this, that, and the third. That really wasn't the basics of his argument. The thing was, man, this got to stop, you know. Now, the sad part is he's going to get blackballed. He's going to get blackballed from the league. He's not going to find a job. I pray that he do, because at the end of the day, he's a real good coach. Real good coach. I wouldn't mind him being a coach on my team. Actually, my team, for those who don't know, is the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints are looking for a head coach, at least at the time of this recording. Probably by now they found him. So, I hope it is Brian Flores or somebody who's better suited for the job. But they're gonna have to show me that they're a better coach than Brian Flores. But he did come here for an interview. But that was after he filed the lawsuit. But I don't think that helped him in his search. But I don't think at this point he really cares. He just want to bring awareness to this clear issue that is plaguing the NFL, if not this country. And I commend him for it. I tip my hat to him. God bless that brother. Because he made the ultimate sacrifice. He sacrificed his career to do what's right. You know, something that we all see. All of us can see there's only one black head coach in the NFL, and we've seen black head coaches succeed. I'm going to say 80% of the black head coaches that was in this league that had the opportunity to coach a team was successful. But they're not here. They're not given coaching job. Jim Caldwell brought a team to the Super Bowl. He doesn't have a job. Anthony Lynn with the Chargers. He didn't bring a team to the Super Bowl, but he got the Chargers on the right track. They fired him. And the guy they replaced him with did worse than what he did. But guess what? He still got his job. And guess what? You guessed it, he's white. So, you explain to me that this isn't... You try to convince me that this isn't a racial thing. Please, I'm all ears for this. Explain to me how this isn't racial. Because it's not the records. Clearly, it's not the records. It's not how you can win. It's not how you can lead men. Because if that was the case, these guys would still have a job. And so please explain to me what's the reasoning behind this. But and like I started off the show with, this isn't just an NFL problem. This is an American problem. A United States problem, to be more accurate. It needs to stop. It really does. These guys work too hard. They sacrifice too much to not get a fair shot at a head coaching job. Let me just make this point, and we're going to move on. The Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, they're looking for a coach. Well, this year they're getting a new coach. After firing, once again, another black head coach. After one season, they fired him. But in their search for a coach this offseason, one of their top candidates was Josh McCown. Now, Josh McCown is a former quarterback in the National Football League, so he knows football to that extent. Josh McCown is not a coach. He's not an offensive coordinator. He's not a special teams coordinator. He's not a water boy. He's not a he's not a kickoff return special. He's not even in the NFL. Josh McCown, not even in college. Josh McCown coaches at a high school, and he was a finalist. To make matters worse, he's not even the head coach of the high school football team. He's an assistant. He was a finalist over two other black candidates who have winning records in the NFL. Now, as it stands right now, he was thrown out of consideration. I don't know, after all the backlash where people went crazy about that particular fact, but his name was taken out of the finalist list there in Houston. But the mere fact, I don't care if you take him off now or not, the mere fact that he got an opportunity when others didn't is completely ridiculous to me. And that drives my point home. that case right there proves my point. That is completely and utterly ridiculous. But moving on, we have a film to review. And we have a film to review that, quite frankly, I remember when this film came out. I was there opening weekend, and I watched it, and I was so inspired. I love football. Football is life to me. I wanted to play football. My coach told me I was too short. I was too small. I tried, but it didn't work out. And then I had other underlying issues that I'm not going to get into because I'm going to get mad all over again. But I wanted to play football. I was good at it. You know, if I don't say so myself, I was pretty good. But this movie really caught me in the feels as far as playing football. And it's one of these films that when you watch it, it's very inspirational. But once you go back and you learn the actual history, because this is based on a true story, but we use base very loosely here, because the actual story is completely different. Well, not completely, but there's a lot that's not accurate with this story. But not to ruin anybody else's experience with it, I'm not even going to go into all the inaccuracies of this film. Maybe touch in on one or two of them, but overall, I'm not going to go in on it. The film we're reviewing today for our Black History episode is a film that came out in the year 2000. It is a biographical sports film produced by Jerry Bruckheimer and directed by Boz Yonkin. And the film is titled Remember the Titans. And it is based on a true story about Coach Herman Boone, portrayed in the film by the great Denzel Washington, in his attempt to integrate the T.C. Williams High School, now called Alexandria City High School, football team in Alexandria, Virginia in 1971. Will Patton portrays Bill Yotes, Boone's assistant coach. Real life athletes Jerry Brashear and Julius Campbell are portrayed by Ryan Hurst and Wood Harris, respectively. This film was so inspirational for the fact that you got this black head coach in 1971. He goes to this team, or this high school, to coach the high school football team. He's given an ultimatum. He has to win. And he has to win every game, because the first time if he lose one game, he's fired. He has to win every game or he's fired. So that pressure was put on him, because he was taking this job from I guess you could say a Hall of Fame high school coach, who was Bill Yotes. And he was basically put in this job, to show that a black, it was basically a Rooney Rule before the Rooney Rule. And they gave him that job for that reason, just to ease racial tensions in Virginia. So he had to push these young men to come together, black and white, to come together and play as one, to play as brothers and win. They could not lose. And so, and they did. The cast was outstanding. This has an outstanding cast. As I mentioned, Denzel Washington, Will Patton, Donald Faison, Ryan Hurst, Wood Harris, Craig Kurtwood, Eden Suppley, Kip Purdue, young Ryan Gosling, Nicole Parker, Kate Bosworth. I'm sorry. This film really showed the racial divide in the early 70s in Virginia. I like that. I like how they came together. I really loved the story of Jerry Brashear and Julius Campbell, how they became brothers. This white and black teens who played the same position, who played linebackers, but now they got to kind of work together and play on the field together. Didn't really want to associate with one another, but they end up having the closest relationship, and they literally became brothers. They called each other brothers. And that part of the movie is what saves the movie for me, because Now when you watch it, now it's over 20 years old, of course, it holds up in parts, but some parts is kind of like, you know, I really don't really feel that it's good. That I thought was good in 2000. Now it's not like, it's like, no, I really don't care for it. But but that part of the film, that relationship between Jerry and Julius was so authentic. Wood Harris and Ryan Hurst, this is probably the best you've seen them in films. That relationship, those two characters built up a actual love for each other that you felt. And I felt that because I have a friend, and he's Hispanic, Honduran to be exact, and he is, we've been friends for over 30 years, and I don't consider him a friend. I consider him a brother, and we grown. Even his cousin, same thing. We're all brothers, and I can relate to that relationship they have. It is weird how you think family is only a blood thing, but it's not. It's a love thing, and that's where I learned that from, actually going through it. And you see it in these two characters and how it was depicted in this film. And in real life, it was really like that with those two actual human beings. And it is touching, heartbreaking at times. You really, really, really enjoyed the journey that they went on, and how it gives you hope on how we can break through this racial divide that we have as people. You know, and stop having this preconceived notion of just because you black, I don't like you, or just because you white, I don't care for you. You know, you can move past that and actually begin to love each other. This is what that film shows. And it's not fake or phony, because this is an actual true story. You know, so the elements of the film that aren't true, you know, I'll just touch in on one. The one thing that's a part that this film showcases that didn't happen in real life was the outcomes of the game. Now, they won all the games. They won all the games and they won the championship. But this team, the T.C. Williams High School that year, blew teams out the water. They destroyed teams. I think they only had one close game. But for the most part, every game, they destroyed teams. Now, that's not very cinematic. You know, there's no drama there. So they had to make it to where they struggled, especially in the championship game. In the film, the championship game came down to the final seconds on that beautiful play, that reverse, that backside reverse that they ran in the final seconds, which was awesome. It was beautifully shot. Loved that ending. It was touching. You tear up at the end of it. It was great. Perfect. It was perfect. It did not happen. It did not happen in real life. What happened in real life, they blew those people out. I think it was like 41-0, if I'm not mistaken, in the championship game. They shut out, if I'm out of their 13 wins, they shut out 9 of the other teams. They shut them out. The teams did not score. In that actual championship game, what was the final score? Oh, man, I just had it, and I lost it. I hit the button, and it went back. I can't find it. But anyway, it don't matter. Oh, it was 27-0. They blew them out. It was 27-0. But, yeah, that's the only thing about that. Now, in order to know that, you got to do what I did or just listen to what I just said and ruin that. But anyway, it would ruin that. But it really didn't. It added to the story. But that's one of my big bugaboos with biopics. I hate when they take liberties that they don't have to. I understand that it is more cinematic to see the heroes struggling and overcome obstacles. But we see that in the real life. If they were focused on the actual real life thing, like the story I was telling y'all with Jerry and Julius, their story, that's the struggle, with the families. Jerry's mother welcomed Julius into the house. They came over for dinner. She considered him a son, and this was early 70s Virginia. This was in the height of the Civil War, where it was a Civil War, but the Civil Rights movement right at the end of it, and people still wasn't quite there. I mean, hey, it's 2022 and people still aren't quite there. So it wasn't like she just welcomed it in with open arms. So, but they grew to love each other. That was the struggle. Now the games, they could have showed them blowing it out. I think that would have been, me personally, that would have been just fine, because I get it. That's cool. But overall, I still love the film. I like I said, it's dated in a couple of areas. A couple of things in the stories was kind of cheesy, even though I know it's a Disney film. But it was a little cheesy at parts. But overall, Denzel Washington, love Denzel. Denzel Washington can't do wrong in my eyes. Will Patton is also an awesome actor. Can't do wrong. So, Remember the Titans, for me, gets a grade of a B+. It is still an awesome film. Awesome football film. It is widely considered one of the best football films of all time. And I can agree with that. It's not too many good football films if you ever sit down and think about it. But this one here was it's very inspirational. It's very sweet. You can watch it with the whole family. It's rated PG. Everything about it, the theme of the day, it checks all the boxes. So I highly recommend Remember the Titans. Gets a B+. You can check it out. I watched it about a week or so ago on Disney Plus, if you have that service. So yes, everybody, that's pretty much my bugaboo for today, and that's the Rooney Rule. That is the Black history of the Rooney Rule. How black head coaches are getting their opportunities in the NFL. Look, I understand its place. I do. I understand why it's there. But I just don't like the fact that it has to be there. I think, me personally, in a perfect world, you shouldn't have to be mandated to interview somebody that's qualified. If you're qualified, interview them. It don't matter what race or creed they are. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that, or am I alone here? I thought this was a equal opportunity country here. I guess I'm wrong, but I hope things need to get better, people, because this is ridiculous. You put this rule in place, and that just goes to show you how arrogant and pompous these owners are. They don't care about the rule. They don't care. They're gonna get fined. They're gonna get stripped of draft picks and so on. They don't care. They're billionaires. You think they care about that? And so they're gonna put in their people regardless. And that's not right. I just don't think that's right. When you got guys working twice as hard to get where they are, just to have the door slammed in their face. But I hope Brian Flores and these other minority coaches get their fair shake, man. I really do. And I'm not advocating for people to lose their jobs just so Brian Flores can get a job. No, I just want a fair and balanced opportunity. And that's all Brian Flores was asking for. That's all he's asking for. He's not asking for the moon here, people. It's not hard. It's really not hard. And so, hopefully, prayerfully, it will get better. Hopefully, this time next year, after we go through another season, after we go through another cycle of coaches getting fired, because every year we get about 6-7 coaches losing their jobs. How's it going to turn out next year? How's it going to turn? Well, next year, I bet you a bottom dollar you're going to get about 2, 3, if not 4 new black head coaches. You know why? Because of all the foolishness that took place this offseason. Because all the backlash that came from this season. Just watch. Just wait. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. So that's the show for today, everybody. I hope everybody is enjoying their Black History Month festivities. I don't even know if they have festivities for Black History Month anymore. There used to be parades and, TV shows and stuff like that. You don't see nothing on Black History no more. You don't learn nothing. My goal is to learn something new every day, and I have. I've read, well, not every day, but every now and then I'll read something that's shocking to me. Like, really? That really happened? But yeah, learn something new, man. Because blacks, African Americans, we've done so much and get no credit at all. And it's our job, generations coming up, to know, to share this knowledge, to let the world know we did this. We did this. And yes, we in cases we do have to be selfish like that. And it's sad, but it's true. Because your hand is kind of forced. Your hand is kind of forced to be that way, to feel that way, and it's sad. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is. But anywho's, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope that I said something today that will help you continue to listen. If you are new, hey, come on back. Come on back. Every week here on Movie Goodness, we have a new movie to review and a new topic to discuss. Just look us up on various listening platforms. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're everywhere, wherever you're listening currently. Don't forget to rate and review the show. It helps this show out tremendously. I really appreciate the support that we have received here on the KB Radio Network thus far. Words cannot express how much love I just want to hug everybody. I wish my arms was long enough to hug everybody and show my love and appreciation for the love and appreciation that you have given to this show. And I hope you continue to listen. Don't forget to look us up on social media, KB Radio Network, whatever it may be, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. We're everywhere. So check us out. As always, everybody, I want you to know that I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.